All right, Little Rock, it's time for another episode of I Hate Real Estate. I am here with my friend Kendel Grooms, and we are in Jumpstart Studios, downtown Little Rock Venture Center Tech Park, and home of also Jumpstart Studios. I'm Jamie Taylor, Kendel Grooms. How are you doing today?
Doing well.
Good to hear. Well, have you been in court any lately?
Friday, I was in court.
I kind of get scared to go to court. I think it's funny that you look forward to it.
I've got 3 cases that are basically the same case, and so I've already made that argument twice, so there wasn't much to it.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump right into it today and tell stories about why this podcast came to life anyways, the not so fun underbelly side of the industry. So let's go. Story time. Your turn.
Okay. And all names, people,
There are no
locations.
Yeah, hold on. Let me do the legal disclaimer. Tell me if I mess this up. We're not going to use anyone's name.
And if we do, we've already talked about fake names being used in the event we say them, and we've written them down. So to the extent we do say a name, it is a fake name for the purpose of this story.
Okay, thank you. Fake name. And if you have any other questions, you can just hire Kendel as your lawyer and then pay him to answer them.
That's right.
Go ahead.
But I still can't give you the names and locations and details of this particular story.
Okay, fine.
So I'll start. So I get a phone call from a potential client who tells me that she is getting ready to sell her home, but they have had to make substantial amounts of repairs to the foundation of the home. And so this concerns me as a lawyer. Why is my question. She says, well, we hired someone to come out. We hired a company to come out and look at the foundation, or an engineer to come out and look at the foundation and tell us, is there a problem, number one, and number two, if there is, what steps do we need to take to fix it?
I'm guessing she had some sort of problem that led her to even call.
They had known there was a problem there for about a year, at least suspected it, because they had some doors that wouldn't close just right and some things like that. I think there was maybe a crack in a wall, in like sheetrock wall, maybe a floor, something along those lines was why. That wasn't the point of the call, but
right.
They were trying to get it sold, and obviously they have to disclose these things on a disclosure like we've talked about previously. And so they wanted to do it right, and so they call the engineer. The engineer comes out, gives them a report that it's really bad. The situation's bad. And so they're told to call a company to come out and address the foundation issues. So the client calls the owner of this company and gives the address and starts talking about the problems, and the owner of the foundation company says, well, hang on a second. If I walk in the door of this house, is the issue that you're talking about, do I like walk down the hall, then turn right through a door certain and go to this certain part of the house, and that's where your problem is? And she's like, yes, and how did you know that? He said, oh, I was out at that house 2 years before you bought it. I was out at the house 2 years ago. And so about the time that they had bought it. And obviously she is surprised to know that.
Yeah, she's obviously like, how do you know how to get to my bedroom, first of all?
Because they had no idea that there was an issue when they moved into the house. Mm-hmm. They realized over time living there that there was an issue. Right. Yeah. And so she says, well, how did you get hired? Who hired you? And he says, well, my first contact was with another engineer. And so my client touches base with this other engineer and says, can I get a copy of whatever engineering report you did on my house back in 2016? And the engineer says, yeah, I'll send it to you. Well, come to find out, the person who actually hired the engineer was the real estate agent to do this report. And the real estate agent's name is on the report that was selling the home. And the report literally says that the house is in such a dangerous condition that it should not be lived in.
Of course, this is on the seller property disclosure.
No, not on the seller's property disclosure. The report was never disclosed to her, never had any clue. They sell the house. The report itself was actually obtained less than 2 weeks before they signed a contract, and about a month and a half before closing occurred. None of this was ever told to them.
That's a tight timeline.
This is one of the reasons why you hate real estate and why I, as a lawyer, get involved in it. And so, obviously, there were lots of communications. Insurance companies get involved in the whole process, and there was never any denial by said real estate agent of what was done. And I never got into it. I did get hired by this client, but ultimately, for legal reasons, we never pursued anything.
Right.
And there were statements on the MLS listing of this property where it was clear that the agent knew there was something wrong and was doing everything that agent could do without disclosing this issue. Because there were things on, the little comment section of the MLS listing at the bottom. There were all kinds of statements about this is absolutely as is. This is non-negotiable on it being an as-is condition. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be any repairs on an URSA form, nothing. It is completely as is, done, has to close within a certain amount of days. I mean, these are all things that were on there.
Well, and I make that assumption when I see those comments that either it's incurable repair, like it's such a big deal, like foundation, roof, some kind of electrical that's so expensive, I can't do it. Or it's going to be something that's water, some sort of intrusion. It's going to be really awful. And so when I see as is, I know, okay, I'm going to have a big issue. That'd be my first, what's wrong with it? And then secondly, if it's as is, this guy must be up against the wall on a price. He can't let go of repair money. There's something, you know what I mean? So it would tip them off right away. Did the buyer have an agent too that kind of walked them through this, or did just the seller?
Buyer had an agent.
Okay. Did buyer agent ask seller any information about why it was as is or any of that?
Not that I know of. Not that I'm aware of. And that is because I didn't get into it. Right. Ultimately, I'll put on my non-lawyer hat here because...
Take it off.
Yeah, take off the lawyer hat, because this is why I would personally, not as a lawyer, hate real estate. Because the Arkansas Real Estate Commission has a rule that can't be waived, that even if you don't know about something, it's a 3-year limitation to bring it.
Right.
Well, when they found out about all this, it had been more than 3 years, so they had no action back against the real estate agent.
So there's just like a statute of limitation.
At the Arkansas Real Estate Commission, yes.
Right.
And the Arkansas Real Estate Commission has the $25,000 recovery fund, as you well know, and that would have been enough in this situation to cover all the repairs and everything that needed to be done.
Right.
And this report that was obtained by the real estate agent back in 2016, it was only around, I think it was a $2,500 repair to fix the issues that were there.
But then
by the time by the time my client got to the point of being able to fix it and found out what had happened, it was over $16,000 at that point.
Just continued to get exacerbated by time. And
And then even the Arkansas Realtors Association, they have the ethics board. It's 180 days from the date of first notice. We'll come to find out, client had communicated with them back in June of 2020, and we didn't get retained to help her until after the 180 days was gone, and so we couldn't bring an action at the Realtors Association either. And because this contract is an as-is contract, we told her that we weren't willing to take the risk with her money on the side of the real estate contract and actually filing a full-blown lawsuit.
Well, the other part of it, and my question is, on the lawsuit side, if you want to go for personal damages, like, even if you, like, why I hate real estate anyways, my principle is, why didn't the seller want the agent to disclose what was going on? Why didn't they just say, like, oh, there's a foundation issue, we found out about it, the agent issued a report, we're not willing to fix it?
They would have lost the sale.
But, I mean, you can't, like, again, that's such bull crap. Because it doesn't make any sense for somebody to say, okay, I'm going to sell this property, and then all these years later, it's going to come back on them harder financially anyways. It makes no sense to me on the real estate side of things. Why would you even put yourself in that position? And then real estate agents, don't put your name on a freaking inspection report.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I thought that was kind of like don't do that.
Well, and it may have been that this real estate agent owned that property and like bought
that
it.
Would be even worse.
I know.
That would be even worse.
I know. And that's again something that I never got into, but I took it that the reason that the real estate agent's name was on these documents was because the real estate agent was the owner and had it listed on that agent's own behalf.
Okay. Well, we're going to pretend like that's not part of the story, because that's even worse.
Yeah.
Because you can't take ethics training and then be like, I'm an agent-owned home and there's a major foundation issue, but mum's the word.
That's both sides of the story. That's the seller's disclosure problem and the agent's problem.
When I first started thinking about this podcast, I was going to do all is fair in love and real estate, but first of all, nothing is fair. So then I thought, I hate real estate. Then I thought love-hate relationship. Because here's the thing. I love real estate. And I want to be very clear about the fact, Kendel and I both make a living in real estate. We love the actual practice of ethical, proper real estate. It is this kind of crap right here that makes you say, I hate real estate. And that I think people should be exposed to, because you think you're buying a flip property. Let's say the person was going to be an investor. They didn't care that there was going to be an issue, right? But they didn't know there was an issue. So they fix the house and they move on and they sell it to a family, and the family ends up having this uninhabitable situation years down the road. And they come back to that contractor or that person that flipped the house, and they're like, well, why didn't you fix this $2,500 issue that's now this massive issue later? Oh, because this jackass lied to me about it.
Yeah. And it's a situation from a dollar value standpoint. This is not that big of a deal in real estate. I mean, a $2,500 fix is nothing.
I've sacrificed more commission than that on a fix.
I know. And then it turns into $16,000, and all of a sudden you've lost 10% of the value of the home.
Yeah.
And this person, all the equity that they've built in the house over the last 4 years is gone.
And I think the biggest thing that I think consumers want to know, though, is like, what's your recourse on that anyways? One of the reasons you didn't pursue the case is because expense-wise for the client, it would probably have been a bigger expense and a bigger pain in the ass than they would have been able to get back. And actually, there's other cases I'm working on for you right now that are in similar situation. Like, they could keep billing me per hour, which I appreciate, but it's not going to get them anywhere. So we just need to stop it and say, I'm sorry, but you lost money. What do you recommend people do? Typically, you would say like the commission first, right? Because it's free.
That depends a lot. It's very circumstantial.
I mean, right. But in this situation.
In a situation, well, it depends on timing, number one. There are statutes of limitation out there on a lot of things. It depends. Right. What you really need to do, and where my client in the situation we just talked about screwed up, was that she took matters into her own hands before ever contacting us. And so certain time limits ran that otherwise may not have run.
Oh,
and
so she didn't call you till it was way past.
Well, with respect to that Realtors Association board that we could have gone to, which there's no recovery there. It's just going punishment for realtors, as you know.
Right.
But we could have at least done something, and now we're in a position where we can do nothing.
Well, and that's the thing, is at least you had statute. You'd have like some sort of precedence. I know that I have to use that word carefully with a lawyer, but isn't there precedence when, let's say, they ruled in behalf of, and they said, oh, that the agent wasn't ethical here. It was agent owned. She should have disclosed it. She should have disclosed it. And then later, you could go to civil litigation and be like, look, the real estate commission ruled in our favor.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've done that before. We've done that like with the Home Inspectors Licensing Board. We've gone and gotten rulings from them that someone did an unlawful home inspection and they weren't licensed, and the finding is binding.
Oh.
The finding is binding in court. Later on, and so especially if they don't contest it, it's an actual like order from a board that's an administrative agency of the state of Arkansas, and so we do those things. The problem with it is if you go to an administrative agency like the Real Estate Commission or a licensing board, the law says you have to completely finish that administrative proceeding before you can pursue an action in a lawsuit in the circuit courts of Arkansas.
And
so
those administratives can take a long
sometimes,
time.
like the Real Estate Commission, by the time you actually do an appeal and everything, it can be a year delay in filing your lawsuit to go that route for the possible opportunity of recovering $25,000 at a maximum. And that's worth it to some people that their damages are less than $25,000, but most of the cases that we get, it's in excess of that amount.
Well, you're not going out to hire a lawyer over something that you can't, or an attorney over something that you can't handle within a certain amount, or maybe you can't solve by going to the real estate commission.
Just not smart to throw more money at a lawsuit than what you stand to recover from it.
Well, when it comes to real property, some of these things are non-recoverable, and I could see what you mean, like continue to pursue the damage. But I think what really happens is you end up promoting the public trust a little bit more when you start to go through that complaint process, because I'm a real estate agent and broker and appraiser. I don't want anyone to file a complaint on me. But the reason the process is there is because situations like this arise. And I do think it's important consumers know to do that. Because if you get worked like that in a real estate deal and someone's unethical and you don't complain, they're going to do it again. That's
the problem is at this point, This real estate agent has gotten away with these acts. And it's probably between 2016 and today, not the only time it's happened.
Well, that's one of the reasons I hate real estate. The thing is about this show, and I want you to know if you tune in and you're an agent or you're an attorney or you are a consumer, the idea is to, yes, real estate is a ceilingless, amazing investment opportunity. It's great to own your own home. It's great to invest in commercial real estate, whatever it is you want to do. But at the end of the day, you need to protect yourself, and you need to be aware that what you're getting into is serious business.
Well, and all the issues that we are involved in are the issues that lead to your ownership of the home. Mm-hmm. The post-ownership of the home issues are not true real estate issues at that point. The issues that we're talking about are the day you decide to build a home until that home is built and you're done, or the time that you decide to make an offer on a property and you close on that property. Mm-hmm. The issues come up afterwards, but the causes of action, like the facts and circumstances that lead to my involvement or you calling me about my involvement, are all what happened during that interim period of time. That's where these problems arise.
Well, and that's the whole key. And as we wrap up this episode, before we move into the next one, I would just really kind of stress that to our listener base, because I would hate them to misunderstand the idea of I hate real estate, which we do love it in our personal lives, but we're here to talk about that underbelly that people don't talk about, because you do watch HGTV. I was literally getting a pedicure watching HGTV, and they were like, oh, we just went ahead and remodeled our kitchen for $3,600, and we just sold our house for $85,000 later in 36 days. What a market. And it's like, first of all, that's great if that happened to you. 1, 2, probably not. And 3, at the end of the day, as many easy, fantastic, wonderful success stories as there are, there's another lawsuit to match. Am I right?
That's correct. And even if not a lawsuit, because not all things come out, even if not a lawsuit, there's at least an issue for every success story that's out there. Yeah. And despite all of this, these things occur. Arkansas is one of the model states nationwide for real estate transactions. States all over the country want to match what we do in our real estate transactions. I believe that Stanford Law School actually teaches their law program on real estate using the forms from Arkansas, because there are very intelligent people that have been involved in creating the forms, and the Realtors Association here is very involved in legislation and the form creation and everything else. And so you can imagine what happens in other states where the transactions are not as tight knit as what we have here. And these things still occur even in states that are the model state for real estate transactions and the forms and documents.
I'm so glad that you're going to close us out on a high note, because I literally just got out of, and I'm sure that the producer's cracking up right now in his head, because I was on the phone on speaker. We're driving over here with an extra microphone arm, and I'm on the phone, and the guy's going, I don't understand why these guys have provided this ancillary contract. And I said, I don't either. I said, the Arkansas Realtors Association contracts that we have here are used at Stanford to teach people how to do law. I said, they are fill in the blank. We have created the best contracts in the country. So don't come here. We have enough realtors. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of I Hate Real Estate.
Let me do the gavel.
Yes. Till it gets here in shipping. Amazon. We're out.